Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cycle Podcast. Today, I have Annie with me, and she is in Florida, as you can tell if you're watching the YouTube video. By the way, just want to say these are recorded for the podcast, but also they are on YouTube if you want to watch the video. But Annie looks nice and warm in her tank top because she is in Florida.
Yes, fan is on.
The fan is on. She's probably hot. Where I'm wearing long sleeves in Michigan, and it's just when we're recording this. Well, Annie, thank you so much for coming on, being so brave, sharing your story. And why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so my name is Annie, and I'm 22 years old. I live in Daytona Beach, Florida. It's very hot here. I am a hairstylist, so I work for myself. I'm like an independent contractor, so it's my own business. I'm a part of like a little suite, so I just go in and do my thing. And I do love being outside because we're in Florida. There's so many things like boating. We're so fortunate to be able to have the beach. I live right near the beach. I like to kayak, paddleboard. We like to mountain bike sometimes, like in the forest. So
Amazing.
definitely like to be outdoors because I work inside. So
yeah, that's
when
amazing.
I'm feeling good.
Yeah. I mean, you live in Daytona Beach. That's where people go to vacation, right?
Yes.
So that's really awesome. For everyone listening, hold on one second. I'm going to close my door. Hold on.
Okay.
My neighbor is like working in his garage and it was really loud. So
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you could hear it, but anyway,
No,
thank you, Annie, for introducing yourself and being here. And we really appreciate it. And we're going to jump right into your story. So you're 22. Do you remember when you first started your period, and was it painful when you first started?
Yeah, so I was actually in 5th grade, and I think I just turned 11, maybe.
Okay.
And to be completely honest, when it happened, like I didn't know what it was because my mom didn't have that talk with me yet. I feel like nowadays people are kids are like learning stuff a little bit sooner now, but like back then, like my mom didn't even like tell me what it was. Like I didn't know. So I was really scared. Like I thought something was wrong. But she picked me up, took me home, I remember, and explained everything to me. And I don't remember really having like any discomfort or anything back then. It was really like when I was in high school, everything like started to change for me.
Yeah.
So it was really different for me. I started having pain and discomfort, and I've always had a lot of stomach issues from since I was young. I was told I was always having it wasn't really like a nauseous thing for me. It was more like always going to the bathroom, and it would, I'd be fine 1 second, and then 1 second I would not be fine. And everyone always would joke that I knew where every bathroom was in town because I was always like having those issues. And my doctor diagnosed me with IBSD, of course.
How old were you when you got that diagnosis?
I think I was like in middle school.
So after you'd already started your period too?
Yeah.
You were having periods, but you were just having kind of stomach issues.
Yeah, it was more of like stomach. I've never been somebody who has like a stomach of steel. I've always had to really watch what I eat.
Sensitive stomach.
Yeah.
Did your doctor prescribe you like medication or something for that? I mean, in middle school.
No, I just watched what I ate, and I later found out that I was lactose intolerant, like really bad.
Okay.
So I don't eat any dairy right now.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah, and that helps a little bit. So
middle school, you get diagnosed with this IBSD, right? It's IBSD, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have stomach issues. Then what happens next? You're in high school and you start.
Yeah, so I'm in high school, and I was a cheerleader for like 12 years, and I was like always really sick. Like the week of my period, it was always really, really miserable. I remember like I'd missed like the week of school, or at least a couple days out of that week. And I did start to notice something was wrong because nobody else was like having those issues, you know, and no one else, like I remember specifically, like I had to wear this huge pad and you could see it through my bloomers and like everybody would see. And I'm like, and it wasn't like I had to, because I'd be running to the bathroom every 2 seconds if I didn't wear that. But I remember it being really embarrassing, because
For sure.
it was embarrassing. So,
You say that you were really sick the week kind of leading up to your period, or the week that you were on your period. What were
yeah.
what some of those symptoms were?
So for me, I have really bad lower back pain for me. Like a lot of my cramping is in my lower back.
Okay.
And it goes down my legs and like it's exactly like on my ovaries that hurt, like really, really low. I have cramping both in the lower abdominal and the back, but it's always my back that is so much more painful. It feels like my back is breaking in half, like really, really bad lower back pain. And it's not like you pulled a muscle back pain.
No.
It's like, it's so different. It's so different.
And would that start a couple days before your period, or would it be like the first day?
I think it was like the first day. Back then, I really didn't know when I was going to get it because I wasn't on a birth control yet.
Sure.
So then I remember always complaining it was really bad. So I did go start seeing like a gynecologist, and they did put me on a birth control.
How old were you around at this time?
I think I was like maybe 15, 16.
Okay.
And they put me on the birth control. And for me, I know a lot of people are different. No one is the same story. But for me, birth control was never a good thing. Birth control always made things worse for me. I don't know why. Everyone says that it's supposed to help. But for me, my cramping was always 10 times worse. My moods were 10 times worse. And I felt like, wow, this is supposed to be helping me, but it's not. And I remember one day I was sitting in class. I remember exactly where I was sitting, what I was doing. And my friends looked at me and they were like, Annie, what is going on with you? You are not yourself. Like something is wrong. Like you're so depressy. Like what is wrong? What has changed? And it was my birth control that I was on. And so I completely switched it, tried another one. I have done so many different birth controls throughout I have tried so many. I know every birth control.
You've tried them all.
I have tried them all.
And so your doctor put you on birth control at that point? Clearly, I'm assuming that they didn't say endometriosis to you or anything like that. They just said, you're one of those girls who has painful periods and we're going to give you this pill.
Yeah. And I mean, my mom even thought that was normal too. You know, like everyone thought, you know, you just need some birth control.
Yeah.
So, I went through my freshman and sophomore year, and then junior year and senior year, that's when I would say things started really like progressing for me. You know, my stomach issues were really bad. And it would give me a lot of anxiety because it was like, oh my gosh, like I got to a point where I was like, okay, if I'm going to go here, I'm not going to eat that day because I don't want anything to mess anything up. You know, I don't want to eat something and then me be miserable.
Right.
You know, that sort of thing. And it was almost like I had one of those like period trackers on my phone. I still do. And I felt like I was like always planning my life around that tracker. Like, oh, you want to do this day? Let me see where I'm at in my cycle. Because I started to write things down and start to notice like familiar things at certain times of the month. So
did you start to put together that the stomach issues were potentially associated more when you were on your period or not yet?
Yes. So the week of my period, I was always going to the bathroom. Always.
Like
it
diarrhea?
Was like, yeah. I don't know if I was able to say that, but yeah, diarrhea. Like really, really bad. Like the week of my period, like it was just, I couldn't go anywhere, especially the first like 3 days. And it was so painful. So now I was still on birth control throughout all of that. So I think it was it was I graduated high school, and then I went to hair school, and I was in hair school, and I have a boyfriend. I've been with him for 5 years. So we've been together for a while. So he's been through it all with me, and he was kind of used, this sounds bad, but he's used to me like having pain, period pain and all of that. And I remember one day we were sitting on the couch just hanging out, and I had the worst pain of my entire life. It was like lower in my right side, like really, really low. And I'm used to pain. So like, I'm like, okay, I can deal with this, like but it was so bad. And I was like, there is something wrong. Like I couldn't breathe. Like it was taking my pain, like taking my breath away. And I was like, I have to go to the emergency room. I'm like, there is something seriously wrong. I remember like getting in the car and like, I couldn't even put my seatbelt on. Like I was in so much pain.
Right.
So I go to the urgent care, and they told me they thought it was my appendix like bursting because it was like really, really low. And I was like, she was like, is it here? Like she was touching around my belly button. I'm like, no, it's super, super low. And she was like, yeah, that's like the same size as your appendix. It's probably your appendix. We're going to send you to the emergency room. So I'm like dying. And for a second it would go away, and then it would come back. It was like I was having contractions or something. It was the weirdest thing. So I go to the ER, and they give me like IV fluids and some pain medicine, and they do, I think it's an MRI, not a CAT scan, right?
Either they may have done either one.
Yeah, I just went to like this big tube, I remember. So they did that, and they told me that I had a 5-centimeter cyst on my right ovary. So, and what was happening was it was flipping, so it would cut off my blood supply to my ovary. So I was having no supply to my ovary, and that's what was giving me the terrible pain. So at that point, there was really nothing that they could do. They were like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to call your gynecologist. This was a Saturday. So when they open on Monday, you're going to have to call your gynecologist, and you're welcome to stay here with your fluids and everything. And so I stayed there for a little bit to calm down, and the pain meds were really helping me. So I remember calling my OBGYN the following week, and I went to her, and she said, cysts are normal, women get them, and keep in mind, I've never been really to a gynecologist like all the time. Like it was just somebody that I went to that gave me my birth control, and, that gave me exams. It wasn't like a specialist or anything like that. So she told me that I needed a stronger birth control, that I needed to keep an eye on this, and I needed a stronger birth control to shrink it. So she put me on a strong birth control, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be a crazy person. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, and at this point, I didn't know that, I didn't know the right answer. I trusted my doctor, and I trusted her to tell me what the right approach was. And so I did it. I took the birth control, and I felt like a pumped up chicken. Like nothing fit me, because it was like I was always retaining water. So I was on that for about, I think 4 months, because they say give it about 3 months to get into your system, and then they were going to do another ultrasound. So I was on that, and I wasn't feeling any better. I was still having like what I called like those contraction pains, where some days I would be like bundled over. And I'm a hairstylist, so I remember what would happen was I'd be with a client applying their color, everything's going great, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God. I remember like lying to my clients and being like, I'm so sorry, like I ran out of color, let me go mix up more in the back. And literally going in the back and doubling over, like crying, like giving myself a couple minutes. And that put a lot of stress on my job, because when you're a hairstylist, you run on time all time. And now I'm 10 minutes behind, dying in the back. My client's like, where are you? What are you doing? Then I'm in the bathroom, so it really affected my everyday life. So then I went back to the doctor. 4 months went by, and we did another internal ultrasound, and those are not fun. So
Those are not fun.
no, I can't tell you how many I've had. So I got my internal ultrasound, and it grew to 8 centimeters. So it was growing. So she was like, we're going to put you on an even stronger birth control. And this should really, really get that out of there. It should start shrinking. So I go on another stronger birth control. At this point, I'm like so miserable because these pills they're so strong. They're so strong. I felt like a pregnant woman. Like I remember I had to buy like bigger bras. Like it was crazy. So, and at this point I was really having like one good week out of the month. Like it was like, the week leading up to my period was terrible. The week after my period was really the best for me. Ovulation is really painful as well. So it's the week after that I get some relief. So 4 months went by. I did another ultrasound, and it went to 11 centimeters. Yeah. So she said, at this point, we do have to take it out. We need to do a laparoscopic surgery. And, she explained, I've never had surgery before, so I was really scared. And she just said, we're just going to make 3 little holes, one at each hip and the belly button, and it will be fine. So I'm gearing up for this, and it's the day of my surgery. And I already have, I'm already prepped. I have the IV in. I'm about to literally be rolled in, okay? And my doctor comes in. This is my OBGYN, and we're at the hospital. She goes, so I'm looking at your scans, and your cyst is way bigger than we thought. It's the size of a newborn's head. And she's like, we cannot take that out through a laparoscopic holes. We have to cut you like a C-section. From your, downwards, horizontally. And I'm like, my mom is like, what? And she's like, this is right before. And I have already mentally prepared myself for this surgery. And I've already took off the amount of time for work. And she's like, no, it's the same amount of recovery time and all this stuff. And she made it seem like it was so, just a simple fix. And I'm like, that is a big difference. And you're really opening me up now. This is an abdominal surgery. So, I go into surgery, and the cyst ended up being, 11 centimeters. They drained 40 something ounces of fluid out of it before they could even get it out of the hole that they cut. And she explained to me that the fluid was clear, and everything, looked okay. And she said, when this was at my post-op, she told me that there was a couple, she explained it like a cigarette burn hole. She explained it when you have a cigarette and you burn it out, but the little dots looked like what I had. And she said I had a handful of those little black spots. And she never once said endometriosis, not this whole time, never ever said endometriosis, never mentioned it once through this whole experience. And I didn't know really anything about it, so I just thought I just have cyst. So
did she end up doing the smaller incision, or did she do the bigger incision to get the cyst out?
No, the bigger incision, but it's shrank now that it's healed. So she was like, I sent the fluid from your cyst to pathology, and I just burned the little things off, the black things off. She goes, I just burned them off and cauterized them off. And, you don't have to worry about that. And I was like, okay. So.
Annie, how old were you when this happened?
I think I was about to be, I was 20, about to be 21.
Okay.
Because this was, yeah, or I was 21. I can't remember. because I'm only 22 now, but I don't know, it seems like so long ago. 21 probably. But anyway, so I was having like, by the way, the pain of this recovery was terrible. I felt like I had a child and there was nothing to show for it. Like, I was really dying. I felt like my insides were falling out, and I am not being dramatic. It was a very hard recovery. I remember like trying to make laps around like my little island in my kitchen, and I couldn't even make it, like holding a pillow. It was very rough recovery. But anyway, so I went back for another follow-up, because you do like little follow-ups after the surgery every couple of weeks, and my pathology came back, and she said that the fluid did come back as like endometriosis, like on the pathology. And
yeah, that was an endometrioma that you had.
Yeah. So and she also reconstructed my ovary.
Yeah.
So that it was able to be saved.
Good.
So at this point she goes, so those little black marks were, probably endometriosis. And I was like, okay. So it was on my bladder, she said, and my peritoneum.
Did you know what that meant? Did you know what?
No. And she wasn't really explaining it either. She just said, some women have it, some women don't. And, she didn't really explain a lot about it. And at this point, I'm a little freaked out because my grandma died of ovarian cancer. So I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, is there something really wrong? So I remember just like going home and like Googling a lot of stuff and using the internet. And I'm like, everyone always says like, oh, you have like, I was always the girl who was like, everyone was like, oh, you have like so many issues, like, like, and it was so rude, but I did. And when I looked up endometriosis, it was like everything made sense. And it started like the dots started connecting, and I know I'm probably talking in circles, but I do have a lot of problems with like my bladder. I have like interstitial cystitis. I guess like that cyst was just so big, it was weighing a lot on my bladder.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I have a lot of bladder issues. So at this point, I went back for my last follow-up, and I was already really fed up with my doctor, because I was like, I have been complaining to you about my period for so many years.
Yeah.
And now this happens, and you're now just mentioning this. Like, I was not happy with her. I felt like I was more educated than her.
You were.
Yeah. And I was like I remember I'd go in with like my note section with like a list of questions, like, and the doctors are so quick to be in and out, and I felt like I was on Google more than I was talking to her.
Did she keep you on, did you reduce your birth control or like take a lesser amount after all of this?
No, she didn't, because she said that I could get more cysts. So she kept me on the higher one. So at this point, I went for my last follow-up appointment so she could like check how it was healing and everything. And she walked in, and she acted like she's never seen me before. It was the weirdest altercation of my life. Like, and I've been coming to see her after my surgery. Like, this was like my third time, I think. So she's like, hi, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. We got your pathology results back. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I already got my pathology results back. Like, my surgery was like a long time ago now, And she goes, well, your pathology came back as some, cancerous cells and all of this. And I'm like, what? My grandma died of ovarian cancer. Like, that is like in my chart. Like, what do you mean? And then she looked at me and she touches my shoulder and she goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had the wrong chart. Someone must put the wrong. And I was like, oh, no. I was like, I literally walked out. I was done. And
Good for you.
I called my mom after, and she was like, thankfully I wasn't there, because if she said that, I probably would have passed out and cracked my head open or something, like, because I know what my mom went through, and like, oh, she's like, I just can't even believe that. Like, how unprofessional. And the worst part about it is I think she just brushed it off. Like, I
So
just,
I'm
I could,
guessing that was the last day she was your doctor.
yeah. So that was it. So I was really, really lucky to be able to work with girls, and they're older, in the salon that I work in. They all dealt with endometriosis. 3 of them did. They've all had hysterectomies, and they started talking to me about it. And that was the one thing I did hear previously, was I did hear them say, oh, I bet you have endometriosis, you know, like when I would always have my pain at work and stuff, but I didn't really think much of it. So they told me about their doctor that they go to. One of them does. And I guess he deals with endometriosis. And actually one of my clients had like the ablation surgery by him. So I went to him, and before all of this happened, before I went to this new doctor, I started like researching a lot and looking at a lot. And I found a lady, I don't know if you know her, but her name is Jessica Duffin, and she has this Endo lady, and she has like a program online that you can sign up with. She's a health coach, and I started doing that, and she helped me learn how to like eat for my cycle and manage my stress and everything. And I was actually vegan for 6 months, and that really did help me a lot. I wasn't eating dairy, soy, meat, any of that, and that really helped my digestive issues along with my period. I did have a couple better cycles. And I would notice if I ate bad, my cycle would be worse, you know? So I went to this new doctor and I explained everything. And he was looking at my charts, and he said, I don't know why your gynecologist told you that the fluid was clear, because in your pathology report, it says that it was like sweet tea colored.
Yeah.
It's like a chocolate cyst.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And then like, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I just felt so confused, because I'm like, I have no idea what went on during the surgery. I don't know what happened. I don't know what is actually going on. I felt like there was just so many missing puzzle pieces. So I told him that I was like being vegan, and he laughed at me. He was like, what does that have to do with anything? And I was like, what? I'm like, that has a lot to do with it. Like eating for your cycle, like that's like a real thing. And I remember he just did not take me seriously at all. So I stopped going to him. I got off birth control, and I was trying to do everything like of a more like holistic approach.
Yeah.
And it really, really helped me. And it was helping me like manage my stress, because for me, like managing my stress was like a huge part of it. And I'll get back to that after everything. But long story short, I did find a specialist through Nancy's Nook, and he's about an hour and a half away from me at a big hospital, and he took me seriously, and it was really nice. He took like an hour and a half to like talk to me and go through everything, and he actually referred me to a pelvic floor therapist, and I did do like a handful of sessions with the pelvic floor therapist, but then COVID came, so it was like I had to stop because they had closed down. But I do have an appointment in like a week to start that back up again. So it'll be kind of like a fresh start with that. So, and I was going to get a cleanup surgery because I needed to actually have it cut out. And I was going to do that, but COVID hit, and then work was crazy when I got back. So I do need to do that this year. But I'm just really happy that I have somebody that I can trust now, you know, that I really like as a doctor, because I think that's so important.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. That was only a couple years ago, and it's just unacceptable in this time and age that we're in that you were treated that way. But I'm so grateful that you have a doctor. And just a couple of things for people who are listening, if you're new to endometriosis, that I want to clarify is hysterectomy is not a cure for endometriosis. And people will talk about ablation versus excision surgery. There are 2 different types of surgeries. Ablation surgery actually just burns off the top superficial layer of the disease. Unfortunately, it does not remove the disease, where excision surgery removes the disease. And that's why it's called the gold standard, because typically with ablation, and again, I'm not a doctor, patients tend to still have issues after they have that surgery, though I have met a couple that have had successful ablation surgery, but excision really is the way to go to actually physically get the disease out of your abdomen. So I just wanted to clarify a few of those things for anyone who's just tuning in for their first time too, just to make sure. And I definitely say, yes, Googling everything. There's 2 Facebook groups, Nancy's Nook and Endometriosis, that have wonderful information to help get you started. So Annie, how are you doing now? You're off birth control. How are you feeling?
Yeah, so I feel so much better when I'm not on birth control. So I actually ended my sessions with the new, like, she's a health coach. She's not a doctor, but she did help me like manage how to eat and everything. And now I know what to do. Yeah. So that's really important. I can't always say that I am following it to the T, because life happens. And I think the main thing that I'm really trying to focus on is my stress level. And I knew I had to make a change if I wanted to feel better. I actually ended up moving salons to a smaller salon, to like more of like a suite. So it's just me and one other person. I loved where I used to work, but it was just a really busy, crazy salon. And it really, I think, contributed to my stress levels. I just work better in a quieter environment, like a more intimate setting.
Yeah. And you're standing all day. I mean, you're on your feet all day.
Yeah. And I only work 4 days a week. So I work like 4 10s or 11-hour days. Yeah. So I can have 3 days off. And I actually made that schedule as well, because I was like, I can't keep doing this anymore. I was so burnt and I wasn't feeling good. Yeah. And I just had to like put myself first. And I think learning to say no was like the hardest thing for me, because with my job, I work for myself. So if I don't make money, if I don't work, I don't make money. Right. So it was really like learning how to prioritize things. And I think my health is like obviously so much more important. And so just trying to eat right and everything, getting back on track with that. Being on birth control is a little scary sometimes, when you have a significant other and obviously you're not ready to have a child. So obviously use other forms, but feeling good is more important to me, because I know everyone's different and I don't know why, but birth control just makes me so sick.
I've met a lot of people who can't tolerate it well. I personally don't tolerate it well either. I think I stopped taking it when I was like 23 as well, 22 or 23. For me, it was mostly the emotional part. Like I was just not myself. I was just,
that was me too. Yeah. Just not myself.
Yeah. I was on a roller coaster. My body did not like that. Well, are there any tips? I mean, stress reduction sounds like a big tip that you've given that's helped make you feel better. You tried vegan. Are you kind of doing like a blend of just healthier eating?
Yeah. So for me, I don't live in like a really up and coming place. So there's really like not a lot of place. I'm not in a big city that I can go get like a green juice or like a vegan burger, it's more of like chains. So it was really hard for me, because I'm always on the go, to always have that perfect meal where I have all the fats I need, all of the protein I need. And I actually started obsessing over it. Like I was like, oh my God, like I can't eat this. What am I going to do? And it actually like raised my stress levels. So I started eating like only grass-fed meat and like no antibiotics, no hormones, because obviously I'm estrogen dominant. So I don't need any more hormones. So I just try to eat that and lessen my dairy. But if I do go to a party or something, I will have like a piece of cake or something like that. I just really try not to stress over it, but know my boundaries, know my limits. And if I do have to be present somewhere where I need to be 100%, I'm not going to eat that piece of cake the day before, So that's an exercise. I know some people exercise is a trigger. For me, it really helps me. So that's why I started like biking, because I like it because I don't have to stand on my feet. I can sit down, but I still get that leg workout, and that does really help me a lot. It's just actually doing it, you know. But I really just hope that people can become more aware, because my last ultrasound, because after my surgery, I did have another cyst on my left side now, the opposite side, but I guess that like popped and I didn't know it. But she, you know, the ultrasound tech was just having casual conversation with me, and she was like, so why are you here today? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, I have endometriosis, and I'm just making sure that I don't have any new cysts or anything like that. I really need to keep my ovaries in good condition because I do want to be a parent someday and have a child. And she was like, oh, okay. And is there a cure for that?
Yeah.
She literally asked me. I almost like, thank God I was laying down, because I was like, what? I'm like, like, are you kidding me? Like, what is wrong with this society? I'm like, why does nobody know about this? Like, why? It's like a serious problem.
It's a big health problem. I agree with you. And that's why I do this podcast. But I also, every time I have an ultrasound, I educate them. I've educated recently in the past 2 years, my family doctor. He said, I had no idea, because I send him all of my reports. And he said, I love him. You know, he's a great doctor, but he said, I had no idea this disease could do this. So now that, you know, everywhere, this is what I tell people: if you're comfortable, you tell everyone about your story, because they may then think, oh, my cousin or my sister or my, you know, may have this disease. It does make a difference. And people just think it's cramps on your period, and it's not.
No, it's not. It's so not. It's just, I just can't even fathom that somebody working in the medical industry has no idea whatsoever what it is.
Oh, I mean, a lot of people in the medical industry don't know what it is. And that's why there's so many people and patients like us advocating, because it's unfortunate. It's gotten a lot better, I would say, in the past 10 years, where Google, you couldn't even find anything on Google when I first started having issues with it. But I think it's gotten a lot better. But you're right. It's not right. It doesn't make it right. Everybody should know what it is, just like they know what Crohn's is, just like they know what IBS is.
Right.
They don't. And so I feel like then for us, like, we have to just keep shouting it from the rooftops to educate people. So I'm glad that you said that to your ultrasound tech. And when I'm in all of those type of medical appointments, I'm telling everyone, you know, I had a CAT scan a couple weeks ago, and she's like, why are you having a CAT scan? And I was like, I have endometriosis, and this is what it's done to me. And she's shocked. And, you know, I do agree with you that they should know, but they don't. So the change is coming from the patients.
Yeah, I definitely think that. I even try to like educate like my family and friends, because they had no idea either.
Yeah.
They had absolutely no idea, and neither did I. So,
well,
you
and
know.
I also think that it comes from generations upon generations upon generations, from great grandmothers to grandmas to mothers to daughters to sisters to cousins. This is normal. This is normal. This is normal. And they may have experienced that pain too, but then they're telling their family that it's normal because they were told it was normal. So it's like, you know, it's been going on for so many years that it's like, we have to just make that change. Like, no, actually that pain isn't normal, you know?
Right. Yeah. Another thing that really helped me as well was making like a food diary. Just like keeping track of things and keeping that food diary, and looking at like your menstrual period, like weeks on your phone, like seeing what weeks you can have this, what weeks, like, because I know I can't have a lot of caffeine certain times of the month, you know, and I know what I need other times of the month to help me.
Yeah, track your food and track how you feel, and follow the patterns that make you not feel well. It's such a great tip.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is like getting over that like whole guilt thing, because I always feel so guilty because, oh, like I feel like I feel very flaky, because sometimes like I'm like, oh yeah, like all gun ho, like, yeah, I'm going. And then I'm like, oh no, I can't go,
Yeah.
and like, it's really hard to explain to people, I can't go. I literally cannot go. I don't feel good. And I need to lay in bed with my heating pad.
Yeah.
And that's that, and it's definitely ruined, I think, a lot of friendships, because I can't be present at all times. So I think it really getting over that guilt and saying, this is me and I know I have to do what's best for me. And if you want to stick around, great. If you don't, then if you don't understand, that's, so I really am happy that I have my boyfriend who has been through it all with me and is really understanding. And I've also, tried to educate him as well, because he has no idea, so I've tried to educate him and he's really understanding now. And it's like, oh, now I see, now things add up. So, and he was actually at the appointment with me with the second doctor that I went to. He came in with me. And when he laughed at me about the whole being vegan thing, and after he looked at my charts too, I don't know if I mentioned this, but he said, I think you have endometriosis. And we looked at each other and we were like, when we left that appointment, and we were like, what just happened?
Right. Are we in the twilight zone?
Like, I was just like, at that point, I was like, I don't even know what to do. So that's when I found Nancy's Nook. And that's where I found the doctor that I'm going to.
Good. I'm so happy that you have a doctor that you can trust and that listened to you and spent all that time with you. That's the way it should be. And
yeah, it really should.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I know you're 22 and I'm an old lady compared to you, but
no.
When I started really suffering from endo, I was in my 20s too. And it's really hard because everyone's going out and they're having fun. And it is hard for them to understand that you don't feel good. And, for some of my friends, it took me years for them to understand it. Because same thing, I had the guilt, I felt flaky. It still happens to me now. I still cancel sometimes now. And some of them have gotten more understanding, but unfortunately, unless you have it, they'll never understand.
And that's the whole thing. Like, I feel like once you really don't, like, until you go through that pain, you just don't understand. Like, and they can understand what it is, but you don't understand like the pain. Like it's not just like a period pain. Like it hurts so bad. Like it's like the worst pain, and it contributes to, so many other things like my fatigue and everything like that. And it's not one thing. I feel like it's so many other things that it's just the start of.
Yeah. When I try to explain it to people, and actually for people who are listening or watching, send this to the person who may not believe you or your friend and let them listen to what Annie and I are saying, because it's not just cramps where you take a couple Advil and you feel better. This is how I like to describe it. It feels like I'm getting a fever and the flu, and I feel like I'm going to throw up, and I have shooting pain in most of the lower part of my body. That is not painful cramps, right? And sometimes it can be in my neck and shoulder, the pain. And the pain is different every time. I could be out on a walk and then all of a sudden, like Annie said, she was at work, she had to go hide in a corner because she didn't want her clients to know. I might have to stop sometimes in a walk and be like, oh, and actually like deep breathe my way through it. So right. It's not just these cramps. It is a whole body pain where you physically can't do things. And then the fatigue, like you said, there'll be times I'm trying to read a book because I'm not feeling well, and I'm so fatigued I can't concentrate on the words. Like, right. The only thing I can do is like watch YouTube or watch TV because my brain is literally so fatigued I can't do anything else. Now, this doesn't happen every day. This doesn't happen all the time, but it's unpredictable. It's not just on your cycle. It's not just on your period. It can be when you're ovulating, could be the week before your cycle. So for people who are listening, really practicing empathy and listening to patients is the most important thing. And I know a lot of people who are listening are patients, but if there's any episode you want to share with friends and family, I really feel like this is a great episode so they can really understand what it's like to go through it, and then have doctors not believe us as well, which is very, very hard on us.
Right. Yeah, I was always fatigued, and with my job, I have to be so on because I'm like a therapist, really, and
Yeah.
I have to be light and cheery at all times, and with open arms, and it's like I don't always feel that way, and when you are standing on your feet for such a long time, and then all that other pain on top of that, that's really hard. One thing that really helped me also was coming up with like a nighttime routine. um, Jessica really helped me with that as well. Um, just kind of giving myself a time that I'm going to start getting in bed. If I want to get my heating pad, I can. I really like to make like a turmeric latte because that really helps like with the inflammation, and that kind of helps me like wind down because with my job, I feel like some nights when I get home, it's really hard for me to wind down.
Yeah.
And just like because it's so go 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 next, all day long, it's really hard for me. And then I go to bed tired, and then I wake up tired, and it's like a circle, so it's kind of like really trying to manage my sleep, what I'm eating, really pay attention to what bothers me, what doesn't. And I actually did like a food sensitivity test, and I know those always aren't 100% accurate, but I did eliminate some of the things from what they said bothered me, and it did help a little bit. So I did wean off caffeine completely for a while, but I did wean back on it.
I like how you said, I weaned off it, but then I did
Yeah,
wean back on it.
yeah, I weaned back on. That was really, really hard.
It's,
um, I
I,
just love my coffee, and
I'm also a
it's just
firm
hard.
believer that you can't give up everything. Like
No, you just
you
can't.
just can't. Like you have to live life.
Yeah,
And if you
that was
really
like
like
the whole
caffeine,
thing.
yeah, I understand. I understand. Well, Annie, thank you so much for your insight and coming on. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Um, no, just that really let friends and family know, and just be an advocate for yourself, because I could have just listened to her, and if I didn't go home and do my own research, I don't know where I'd be today. Um, and I'm just really trying to tell other people that as well and share my story. So that's why I love this podcast, because I love listening to it, because some days you feel so alone, and you feel like, am I the only one going through this? I can't be the only one feeling this way. And I love listening to your podcast because it just makes me feel like I'm not the only one. So
Oh,
really
thank you.
share it.
Thank you so much for those kind words. It really means a lot to me. And it's why I do this, because I also felt very, very alone in the beginning. And the goal here is to spread stories so people know what can happen, but also to remind everyone you're not alone. We are in this together, and being our own advocates is unfortunate. We shouldn't have to do that, but we have to. So
Yeah.
keep fighting, keep doing what you're doing. Annie, you've been a pleasure to have on. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for having me.